This is the Motorola Moto G86 power disassembly. If you're interested in seeing more videos like this, make sure you subscribe and click on the notification bell so you'll be notified once I upload a new video. Also, if you need any tools, there are links in the description. To start off, the SIM tray needs to be removed. Taking a look at the SIM tray, we can see a red rubber gasket around the opening. Now heat needs to be applied to the back plate using either a hairdryer or a heat gun to loosen up the adhesive underneath, and then a pry tool can be used to pry the back plate off. I prefer to use a hairdryer since there's less of a chance of damaging any of the components inside by overheating them. Here's a better look at the vegan leather back cover. The LED flashboard is located here. The camera lens covers can be replaced by applying heat and prying them off, so you don't have to take apart the back plate to replace those. At this point, there are 18 Phillips screws which need to be removed. Taking a look at the top plastic motherboard cover, we can see these antenna lines drawn, which are the light gray color lines, as well as a 3-in-1 flicker sensor on the back. This variant of the phone is from India, so it doesn't support NFC. However, one from a different region which supports NFC would have an NFC antenna located here. Here's a look at the other side. The graphite film has to be lifted up or peeled off, and the purpose of the graphite film is to help transfer heat. The battery cable can now be disconnected, followed by the rest of the cables. The coaxial cables on the bottom right side of the board can be disconnected by just popping them off. Taking a look at the main board, we see the 50 megapixel main camera, as well as the 8 megapixel ultra wide. The main camera is the only one with OIS or optical image stabilization. The camera connectors can be disconnected from the board by just popping them off. There's a secondary microphone on the top corner, a liquid damage indicator sticker, which is that white sticker, as well as copper film over the shield to help transfer heat. Taking a look at the other side, we can see the proximity sensor on the top corner, the 32 megapixel front facing camera, the SIM and memory card reader, as well as copper tape, graphite film, and thermal paste on the back shield to help transfer heat. Once the graphite film has been peeled back, we see additional thermal paste on top of the RAM and processor. Here's a better look with the thermal paste removed. Now when it comes to removing the battery, there is still no pull pouch or pull tabs provided to help you pry it off, so you're going to have to apply some isopropyl alcohol to the sides of the battery and let it sit for about 30 seconds to a minute so it eats away at the adhesive underneath, making it easier to pry it off. Here's a look at the 6720 mAh battery. Once the battery has been pried off, we can see this flex cable which connects the main board to the subboard, as well as this flex cable which is for the screen. So if you needed to replace the screen, you would have to remove the back plate, the screws on the motherboard cover and the motherboard cover itself, giving you access to disconnecting the battery cable and the screen cable. You then have to pry the battery off, heat up the front of the phone where the screen is to loosen up the adhesive underneath, pry the whole screen off, apply new adhesive and reapply the new screen, making sure you run the flex cable back through the opening in the mid-frame and reassemble the phone. There's an additional Phillips screw which needs to be removed. Looking at the bottom speaker assembly, there is additional graphite film over it to help transfer heat. And here's the speaker itself. There is also an antenna board on the bottom corner. Taking a look at the subboard, we see the primary microphone located here, another liquid damage indicator sticker which is that white sticker, and the charger port with the red rubber gasket around it. Here's a look at the other side. The vibrator motor is located on the bottom corner, which is held down with some adhesive, and the same goes for the fingerprint scanner located here. If you need to replace either of those, just apply some heat and gently pry them off. The same goes for the earpiece speaker which is located on top. Once these flex cables have been peeled back, we can see a 3D layer of graphite which runs underneath the battery as well as the motherboard. The flex cable for the volume keys and power buttons routed through an opening in the mid-frame, so if you needed to replace that, you'd actually have to pry the screen off as well, which does pose a high chance of damaging a working screen. So unless you really have to replace that flex cable, I would try to avoid it if there's nothing wrong with the screen. Now when it comes to accidentally inserting a SIM ejector tool in the wrong hole, on this phone you don't need to worry, since both the filters and the microphones are seated above the holes so they wouldn't get damaged. For the repairability score on this phone, I give it a 5.5 out of 10. Now it's time to put the phone back together. Once everything's back together, apply new adhesive and reapply the back plate. Flip over the phone, power it on, and you're done. I hope you enjoyed this video and I'll see you in the next one.